Okay, hey guys, in this video I am going to talk a little bit about the production possibilities curve. We went over this in class, but in case you need a reminder or you weren't there, the production possibilities curve shows us what we can produce with our resources. So let's say we have, let's just take the state of Michigan and say we're only going to produce either cars, something we're very good at producing in the state of Michigan, or we will produce apples, another thing that we're very good at producing in the state of Michigan. You guys might not know. But so we're going to produce cars or apples. So if we only produce cars, according to this curve, we could produce 50,000 cars if we spent all of our resources, all of our land, labor, physical and human capital, all of our factors of production. If we spent them all on cars, we could get 50,000. Or if we spent them all on apples, we could get 30, let's say, million bushels of apples. Okay, I don't know how much we actually produce. But we can't have both. We can't have both this and this, right? And that's what this graph shows. If we're at 50,000 cars, we are at 0 apples. And if we're at 30 million bushels of apples, we're at 0 cars. Or we can have a mix. So if we're willing to give up 5,000 apples, we could go from 0 cars to, looks like maybe 30,000 cars. And if we're willing to give up another 5 million bushels of apples, maybe we can go from 30,000 to 40,000. And then up to, maybe 42,000 and 45,000 and then 50,000. Okay, so this shows us the maximum that we could possibly produce given all of our resources. So the production possibilities curve is interesting for a few reasons. In the first place, it shows us scarcity. And it shows us that by showing us that even if we spent all of our resources on cars, we couldn't have an infinite amount of cars. Okay, we'd have to stop at 50,000. And even if we spent all of our resources on apples, we couldn't have an infinite amount of apples. We'd have to stop at 30 million, given whatever amount of resources we currently have, land, labor, physical, and human capital. So that's the limit, right? And scarcity means everything is limited. It means we have to make decisions. Okay. It shows us about factors of production. If we got more factors of production, we actually might be able to produce more than 50,000 cars if we were just producing cars. Or we could produce more than 30 million bushels of apples, or we could produce some mix that was better than any of the mixes we could have had before. Okay, so our line gets pushed out. All right, so it shows us those factors of production. It also shows us about opportunity cost. Okay, because the only way that we can get our first 5 million bushels of apples is to give up, it doesn't look like very many, but maybe 1,000 cars. And the only way to get that second group of 5 apples, so to go from 5 to 10, okay, we have to give up another, I don't know, maybe 3,000 cars, and then another 5,000, and then another, and so on, another, I don't know, 8,000. So we have to make trade-offs. There's an opportunity cost whenever we want more of one thing. If we want more apples, we're going to have to give up some cars. If we want more cars, we're going to have to give up some apples. So it shows us trade-offs and opportunity costs. Okay. It also shows us about the law of increasing costs. If there were no such thing as the law of increasing costs, our curve wouldn't look like this. It wouldn't even be a curve. It would instead be a line. Maybe something like that. Not great, but there we are. So maybe it's a line. Instead of having a straight, even trade-off all the way around, okay, it actually bows inward and becomes an actual curve. The reason for that is that the more of one thing we want, okay, the more it's going to end up costing us in terms of the other thing. So maybe the first million bushels of apples only costs 500 cars, but the second one costs 750. So it's not that the total costs are going up, it's that the cost of each next million bushels of apples keeps on getting higher. Okay. So the costs keep on increasing until it turns out just to get another, just to get another 2 million bushels of apples costs a whole 10,000 cars. Okay, and the increase in costs work the same the other way. Okay, if their first 10,000 cars, that only costs you a few, million bushels of apples, but your second one, that costs you 5, let's say, or no, it looks like 3. And then, the next one up, that's going to cost you about 6,000, and then it just keeps on going up. So that's the law of increasing costs, without which it would be a line, not a curve. All right, just a few last notes. And it looks like some of my labeling sort of went weird here, but this line is actually called the production possibilities frontier. And this looks like this slid down a little bit. But everything underneath the curve, which is within our ability to produce, it's just not very efficient. We're not using all of our resources. All of this is called underutilization. It turns out that the closer we are to the curve in terms of our actual production, the more efficient we are. It doesn't matter where on this line we are in terms of efficiency, but if we're closer to the line, we're more efficient. If we're farther away, we're less efficient. Okay, and it turns out we can't produce anything out here, not without getting more of the resources that we need. So, maybe next year. But this is underutilization, and this is the production possibilities frontier.